Ultimate is a huge problem for iRacing, and I'm going to explain why in this video. This video is going to be highly traumatic for certain sim racers. For those that are traumatized by this, I highly recommend subscribing so you can then relieve the trauma by unsubscribing. You can also click the like button if you like this and the dislike button if you dislike it. You have so much choice and freedom these days on the internet. Before we get to the unsubscribe moments of this video, let me just preface things with saying that iRacing, you can have a lot of fun playing it. It's got a big range of content. It's the only online racing simulator that's active for oval racing, and it's the only online simulator where you can get a range of GT, Formula, God knows what racing, any time of the day. There's pretty much always going to be at least a full grid of something running that you can have a racing. Also, great VR support, great audio, great in-car camera settings. Big events are awesome, 24-hour races. That's all fantastic. Good job, iRacing. With that out of the way, ladies and gentlemen, why is LMU a big problem for iRacing? Put simply, LMU offers the online ranking system with GT3 cars. It offers it with better netcode. It offers it with the jump-in hourly racing that's active. But crucially, and probably the biggest problem for iRacing, is that the GT3 cars in LMU actually drive like cars.
Unsubscribe moment.
What I mean by that is that despite iRacing saying, quote, it's also the most realistic racing simulator, and that, quote, our team has set the standard for GT racing in the entire sim racing landscape, and 6 months of focused development on their GT3 cars and their latest tyre model, iRacing does not support the ability for the driver to naturally countersteer the loss of the rear of the vehicle. And it also lacks the ability for the driver to naturally balance the car through the corner using the steering wheel. And the reason for this is if you have to snap countersteer or you get decent amounts of slip in the vehicle, the tyres get stuck over the limit and the grip does not return for a second or so. The problem with this is that it forces an entirely preemptive driving style. It makes every car effectively have to be approached as if it was a 1960s Formula car or some kind of bizarre race car bobsled. And the thing is, you can learn around that, you can get used to it, and many iRacers have, and it's become their framework for the reality of how cars drive. Despite Netcar Pro, Automobilista 1, Race Room, Assetto Corsa, R-Factor 2, Live for Speed, well, let's say most other simulators over the last 20 years not having this issue, it didn't really matter because iRacing was the only online service where you can race other drivers and get decent competition. At the end of the day, it didn't matter that iRacing's physics were totally ridiculous because what else are you going to race? And with iRacing's marketing and the fact that it's also the most realistic racing simulator and the most popular, driven by real-world drivers, why would you bother playing any other simulator to find out the differences, especially if you came to sim racing during the dark ages of COVID? Unfortunately for iRacing, things have now changed because we now have Le Mans Ultimate. Now, it's not perfect. The handling's not perfect. The force feedback's not perfect. There's lots of issues with it, like there are with every simulator. It's not perfect. Crucially though, the cars drive like cars, in that you can catch oversteer incredibly easily if you're quick at countersteering. That's even with the latest update that's made it a lot less forgiving and a lot less slip-slidey. And, like any real-world vehicle, you don't have to drive it 99.99% through the pedals alone. You can choose between using the steering wheel or the pedals, depending on the situation, depending on what you want to achieve, depending on the vehicle, depending on the corner, and depending how skilled you happen to be at using either the steering wheel or the pedals to drive. But, all that aside, the real critical hit and damage blow to iRacing is the fact that it has the GT3 cars, the endurance racing, the tracks that are tedious and boring like Monza and Spa, but most importantly of all, it has the built-in ranking and split system, the EPEN system as many like to refer to it, which is what people are really playing iRacing for, and it's what's kept them in iRacing despite iRacing's fundamentally awful physics. And there's no way you could go from iRacing to LMU and back and not notice that there's some very fundamental differences in how you can drive in the simulators, but also how those fundamental physics differences contribute to a more or less frustrating video game to play. The netcode in Le Mans Ultimate allows for a little bit of car contact, a little bit of argy-bargy, which in tank-like GT3 vehicles on some of the smaller tracks is kind of necessary for certain overtakes to take place. And it's what you see all the time in real racing, but if you see it in iRacing, it normally results in an atomic blast. Crucially, the tyres not getting stuck over the limit means that drivers don't just randomly spin off every single race because they marginally went over the tyres or pushed a bit harder or had to drive a different line where they hadn't pre-rehearsed the exact amount of pedal input to avoid getting stuck in a slide. The driver avoiding the crash can jump on the pedals, catch the oversteer that they get, make the most of that moment without them themselves then spinning, losing control and having no ability to use the steering wheel to stop their car from going all over the place. The domino effect of ridiculous crashes is massively reduced. And I'm sorry, but if you're doing longer races, there is nothing more frustrating than having a fantastic race with someone, battling them, both of you pushing as hard as you possibly can, and for that race to be cut short by one of you happening to just lose your car and not being able to catch it purely because you took a slightly different angle into a corner, or you pushed the brake pedal 1 millimeter too much with half a degree too much steering angle for what happened to be acceptable in that corner for those conditions in the race. It's absurd and it ruins the gameplay. So people will play Le Mans Ultimate, they will want to grow their EPEN, and I really don't see how they can then go back to iRacing and not notice something severely wrong. And given that iRacing has only just dropped their big update that, quote, has set the standard for GT3 racing in the entire sim racing landscape, this is a huge problem for iRacing. It seems from their marketing material, from their press releases, that they don't know or realise or are just going to gaslight everybody into a different story from what's actually the case in reality. And I don't think, though I have low expectations for humanity and people's critical thinking skills, I don't think sim racers are that stupid. I think that they will, if given an exact example, ranking, plus the same cars, plus the same tracks, plus the same sort of thing, if they are given an exact example that they can then try side by side, I think they'll notice that someone's been telling porkies, or let's be charitable, someone's stretching the truth somewhat. But there you go, that's sim racing. I would love to see iRacing actually do a actual new tyre model that actually drives like cars, because I like many other aspects of their service. As I say, VR, the content in it, the tracks, I like the audio, the camera settings, there's the voice chat is incredible. I love a lot of iRacing, but I also like cars that drive like cars. Even if all cars in all sims are flawed, I still expect the fundamental basics to be ticked off. And if they're not, I expect a developer to have a little bit more modesty. Well done for getting this far in the video. You guys can look forward to the comments that are predictable. You haven't driven a real race car, how can you know? Just play what you enjoy and let people have fun, despite the fact that's separate to the point of basic criticism and the fact that that's separate to the fact that a car that doesn't just insta-bin you in a nonsensical way would actually be more fun. How come this specific real-world driver said that it was a massive improvement and so good now? When, I wonder if any of those specific drivers might have been involved and connected to the developer in some way and are maybe commercially incentivised to not go against the most popular simulator in the market. I wonder if there's any connection there. And finally, the classic, Gamer Muscle, why are you such an arse? Well, actually, to be fair, that's a fair comment. Well, that's this one. That's this video. Massive thanks to all our channel members, Twitch subscribers, ad viewers, Patreon people. You guys allow us to be this directly honest or to the point and blunt. A blunt instrument. The didgeridoo of sim racing. Still haven't learnt circular breathing. It's coming, guys. Yeah, thank you very much. Till the next one, though, obviously, make yourselves a cup of tea and drink it. Take care, and goodbye.